Have you ever stopped to wonder how many of your decisions are actually yours and how many are being made by fear? Not the obvious fear, the quiet kind, the kind that tells you not to apply for the job because you might fail, the kind that tells you not to speak up because someone might judge you, not to end the relationship because at least it's familiar, not to begin something new because what if you're disappointed again? You'll find that with time, fear becomes so familiar that we stop recognizing it. It starts sounding like wisdom, like practicality, like responsibility. But beneath it all, it's still fear. And here's the thing I've been thinking about lately. What if your life didn't actually have to change before your experience of life changed? What if the biggest transformation wasn't external, but internal? Because I've discovered something over the last few years that has completely changed the way I move through life. And it's this. The goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty. The goal is to become steady enough that uncertainty no longer decides who you become. Hi, I'm Deirdre Dickens, and on my channel, I talk a lot about making the shift from bracing to steadiness. And if you've watched my videos thus far, you've probably heard me talk a lot about bracing. Bracing is that state where your body and your mind are constantly preparing for the next problem, right? You're always anticipating, you're always scanning, you're always trying to be one step ahead. And from the outside, you may look completely fine, completely capable. But on the inside, you are exhausted. But today, I don't want to talk about bracing. I want to talk about what happens when you begin living from a place of steadiness instead. Because I don't think enough people know that that's possible. When people hear the word steadiness, they most often picture someone who is emotionless, someone who never gets upset, someone who never seems to struggle. That isn't what I'm talking about. Steadiness doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings stop running your life. It doesn't mean you stop feeling fear. It means fear no longer gets to make every decision. Fear still shows up. I mean, we're all human. Of course it does. Life is uncertain. There will always be things that we can't control. But fear no longer sits behind the steering wheel. Maybe fear still rides along. Maybe it still has something to say. But it isn't driving anymore, and that changes everything. Earlier today, I shared a thought on Substack that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. Now, by the way, I share a lot of my thoughts. I go very much in depth on Substack. If you want to follow or subscribe there, you can find the link in the description. Now, the thought that I shared there today was that steadiness is the art of self-mastery. Not self-mastery in the sense of suppressing your feelings or forcing discipline or pretending that everything is okay, but learning to know yourself so well that your circumstances no longer determine who you become. I think that's the kind of self-mastery most of us are actually longing for. Not, looking harder, like becoming internally harder, like hardening your heart. Not being more productive, not becoming someone who never struggles, but turning into someone who really knows themselves, someone who can notice, I'm starting to brace, my shoulders are tightening, my thoughts are racing, I'm catastrophizing, I'm making decisions from fear instead of wisdom. Because once you notice, you have a choice, and that choice changes your life. One of the biggest surprises for me was that steadiness doesn't necessarily change your circumstances. It changes the way you experience them. You still have bills, you still have uncertainty, you still have those hard conversations. People will still disappoint you, plans still fall apart, life still happens. But your relationship with life changes. Instead of reacting, you start responding. Instead of constantly preparing for what might happen, you begin participating in what is happening. You notice things again. You laugh more. You breathe more deeply. You start to become curious again. You stop rushing through every moment trying to get to some future place where you're finally feeling okay. Because you begin realizing, maybe this moment is worth inhabiting too. One sentence that keeps coming back to me is this: fear narrows your world. Steadiness expands it. Not because life becomes suddenly simpler or suddenly, easier, because you become more available for your own life. Now, I want to be really, really honest. I still have hard days. I still find myself, overthinking. I still get discouraged. I still catch myself slipping back into the old patterns sometimes. The difference isn't that I never get shaken. The difference is I know how to return. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. They think healing means never struggling again. I don't think it does. I think healing means recovering more quickly, recognizing sooner, returning more gently, bouncing back faster. That's what steadiness looks like. It's not perfection. It's practice. I'd love to hear from you. When you think about your own life, where do you notice fear making decisions? Is it in your career, relationships, your health, rest, trusting yourself? Or maybe you've already experienced small moments of steadiness. If so, what changed? Leave me a comment down below because I genuinely read them and I think we learn so much from hearing one another's stories. If there's one thing I hope you remember from today's conversation, it's this: life will probably always be uncertain. There will always be things we can't predict. But uncertainty doesn't have to determine who you become. Fear doesn't have to make every decision. And steadiness isn't something you were born with. It's something you practice. Little by little, day by day, moment by moment, learning to know yourself, learning to trust yourself, and learning to return to yourself. Because in the end, steadiness isn't about controlling life. It's about changing the way you meet it. And when you change the way you meet life, your experience of life begins to change too. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to have you here. So subscribe if you'd like more conversations about moving or shifting from bracing to steadiness. And if you know someone who needs this reminder today, share this video with them. And I'll see you in the next one.